As a professional dance teacher, I take in brand new students every single week. Now, a common phrase I'm often met with is, I really can't dance. I have 2 left feet. I have absolutely 0 rhythm. And my response to this is usually something along the lines of, well, that's what classes are for. Of course, it's much bigger than just coming to a class and just hoping for the best and suddenly you can dance after 1 or 2 classes. There is a process involved, and in this video today, I would like to talk about some of the things which will help you start to learn how to dance. The first thing we're going to talk about is mindset, because this is the starting point to any journey, okay? And it will feature at the start, in the middle, and at the end. Whilst there is lots to mindset, including things like emotional well-being, what we're going to look at specifically today is just 3 things, which is a growth mindset, confidence, and criticism. So the first thing I want to talk about is a growth mindset. Now, this was popularized by the psychologist Carol Dweck, and there is a quote in her book which goes something like this. In a growth mindset, people believe that their most basic abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work. Brains and talent are just the starting point. This view creates a love of learning and a resilience that is essential for a great accomplishment. So overall, a growth mindset is basically going into your class without any sort of expectation of you're going to be able to dance straight away or understand the movement, but more that you are coming into that class with the expectation that you are able to grow and learn and put the hard work in required, as well as the dedication and commitment to stay consistent to the journey. Similarly, Henry Ford said something along the lines of, whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. So really coming into that class with an openness, an open mind, and not expecting to know everything straight away, but really just being there to absorb information, take it in, assimilate it, and take it away, and then work on that. Because of course, you're not going to get everything in one class. That's a growth mindset perspective. Moving on to confidence is really about having this self-confidence in yourself. This doesn't mean that you go to the class and you're like, yeah, I'm a great dancer, I know how to dance, because that can come across as arrogant, especially if you don't have the skills to back it. But it really is about going in and having the confidence that you have the ability to learn. I don't want you to be a confident dancer, I want you to be a confident learner. So come into the class and be confident in yourself that yes, you may not have it now, you may not even have it by the end of the class, but again, with that growth mindset, with that hard work, that dedication, you will eventually get to a point where you're going to be a good dancer, where you're going to be able to do these moves in a great way. Confidence in your ability to learn. And third is accepting criticism. Everyone knows in order to grow and learn, you have to be able to accept criticism, understand where it's come from, and implement it if it's necessary. Now that is the basics. I'm going to go further than that and say, I don't want you to just accept criticism. I want you to seek it. I want you to ask your teachers how to improve. I want you to ask lots of questions in class. Even if it's something that you don't get, obviously give them a chance to finish explaining what they're explaining. But once they've done that, then ask your questions and feel comfortable, because as a teacher, there is no such thing as a stupid question. If a student asks me a question, all that says to me is I did not go through and explain that particular part in detail. I did not explain that in a way that that student is going to resonate and understand. And of course, there are so many different learning styles when you're teaching in a room. And some people learn in some ways, some people learn in other ways. Some phrases that a teacher will use will hit and resonate and others won't. So as a teacher, if you don't say anything, I just assume everyone's got it, everyone's fine. And the first time round that I said something, it was good enough. By asking questions, it allows me to rethink what I'm saying and say it in a different way in the hope that it can resonate with you. A good, respectable teacher will never look at you and be like, why are you asking this question? I've already explained it. A good, respectable teacher will turn around and be like, right, how can I explain this better or in a different way so that this particular person can get it? So please never be afraid to ask your questions. And then on the other side of seeking criticism is when you have the opportunity, don't ask your teacher, is this correct? Because as a teacher, I kind of look around as the standard of the room and I'm like, okay, cool, we need to work a bit more on this. We need to work a bit more on that. If someone asks me, is this correct? Yes, as a standard, it is correct. You're doing the moves correctly. That doesn't mean you're doing them perfectly. It just means you're doing them right. So a better question to ask is, how can I make what I'm doing better? How can I make this better? How can I make this look better for my body shape? How can I make this look better or feel better so that it fits with the music better? So these kind of questions, what they do is they put the teacher on the spot a little bit. And now I have to actually pay attention. Not just are you doing the moves, but are you doing the moves to the specific way, to the specific question that you have asked? So if it's like, how can I make this better? You can always get better. Just because you're doing something right doesn't mean you can't make it better. So by asking that question, how can I make this better? How can I make this, how does this relate to the music? How can I look better? Or how does this look better in terms of my body shape? Are great questions to ask. Get your teacher thinking a little bit more and make sure that you get the most out of your class. Okay, so that is mindset. I started with that one again because the theme on mindset goes throughout most of the points I'm going to talk about today. So it's good to just get that one out of the way. But we are going to go take a step back a little bit and we're going to think about choosing your dance style. Now, some dance styles are harder to pick up than others to start with. So whilst this shouldn't make or break whether you do a dance style or whether you throw yourself in, like your favorite dance style is, I don't know, commercial ballet, it's just good to bear in mind that some dance styles are harder to pick up as a beginner than others. And on that as well, you might find that you start with a dance style and really it doesn't suit you, whether that's your personality, your body shape, your style. Again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it, but I'll give an anecdote. So I started off doing ballroom and Latin, specifically ballroom Latin, and I did that for about 8 years. And what I found was with ballroom, whilst I enjoyed the dance, I loved competing in it, I loved dancing it, I loved practicing in it, most of them. The issue I found was there was always a disconnect between me and the dance. And whilst I understood the mood and the feeling that each distinct ballroom dance needed to give, and I was able to act that out and put on that show, the sort of more gracefulness with the waltz or the more passionate aggression with the tango. And I was able to hit those personality criterias. There was a disconnect. There was something that wasn't quite matching up. I was more attracted to the more passionate dances like tango, paso doble, rumba. So there was kind of like a more inclination for me to dance those. And when I was practicing, I'd always leave ballroom to last and focus on those other ones that I was more excited about. It was only until I started exploring bachata further, I started exploring the music, I started exploring the different movements, the different styles of bachata, and how you can implement those in one dance or relate what you're dancing to the music. It was only when I started really looking into bachata that I was like, this is it. This is the dance for me. This is the one that I resonate with, that I connect with on a deeper level than I've connected with any other dance before. So it was only when I found that and I was like, this suits my personality. This bachata, it suits my soul. So sometimes you might think, I really want to be a hip-hop dancer, because that's why I wanted to be. I really want to be a hip-hop dancer. And you can do the lessons and you can do everything, but there's always a disconnect. And sometimes you can do a dance and then suddenly the fire has come into you and you're like, this is it. Like, this is what gives me the most enjoyment. So when you're choosing a dance style, I don't want you to go in and not start because you're thinking about these things, but once you've gotten started, just have in the back of your mind that some dances are harder to get started with than others, and it might take some time to understand which dance is perfect for you. So take that away, put it in the back of your head alongside with the mindset. Let's move on to the next bit. The third one is actually finding a good actual beginner's class. Quite often I'll go to a beginner's class and it doesn't even go through the fundamentals or the basics, and I can't get a good enough technique for me to move on to the moves that they actually want me to do. So a good beginner's class isn't trying to progress the beginners to a high level so that anyone new that's coming in is going to struggle, unless of course it's a progressive course. A weekly beginner's class needs to always touch on the fundamentals and needs to always emphasize the basic technique, which allows you to have the pillars, the foundations in place to get you started consistently week after week, the beginner's class should also lay the foundation for everything else that you are going to teach. Keep that in mind when you attend a beginner's class. If you go in and you find yourself way out of your depth, like so out of your depth that the teacher isn't even giving you the time of day to slow things down and take their time with it, then perhaps that is not a good beginner's class. Maybe their higher level classes are better, but then perhaps their beginner's class is not the right kind of beginner's class that you want to be able to grow. That doesn't mean give up straight away. I always say test things out for 4 weeks, for 2 months, and then decide what you want to do, whether you want to stay with that class or not. I mean, it might have just been an off week for the teachers, or perhaps it was a continuation from the week before that you needed. But in general, give the class a bit of time, as long as you're not being too put off, and then you can try another teacher. On that as well, to know whether a beginner's class is actually a good beginner's class is to see how much your teachers care about the beginners. Now, this means that, again, we're going back to teaching the fundamentals. Sometimes teaching fundamentals week after week after week after week, it's not the content that makes the teachers excited to teach you. It's the fact that you are learning. It's you that makes them excited. It's your journey, it's your learning. So teachers that bring the enthusiasm to every beginner's class, even if they are just teaching the same thing week on week on week, are ones that you know are invested in your growth. And then the other thing I always say is the teachers that either go around and help on an individual level, or ask for questions, or even just make the effort to dance with you, are the ones that actually care about you and your growth. Finding a teacher that hits these criteria is going to be the ones that are going to help you grow and really lay down the foundation so you can become a better dancer in the future. That leads us nicely on to number 4, which is stay where you are. Don't rush. It happens often when someone will do a beginner's class for 3 weeks and then they want to jump to the intermediate class, which is 2 levels up. So in our school, we've got a beginner's class, we've got an improver's class, and we've got an intermediate class. We don't have an advanced class yet. We just have those 3. And sometimes people will do the beginner's class, and then literally in a month or 2 months, they'll then do the improvers and the intermediate. And from my perspective, is they don't have the fundamentals required to go to an intermediate class because they've skipped out a whole load. The thing is, in one beginner's class, you're not going to learn every single variation of beginner's moves and beginner's techniques in one class, which means that you have to be patient with yourself, but also be patient with the teacher to actually, over 5 months, 6 months, give you everything you need to know to be able to level up. So the biggest piece of advice I'd give for someone starting to learn how to dance is try and stay a beginner for as long as possible. And every time you go to the class, pick up something you haven't picked up before. Ask questions you haven't asked before. Like, even if you're doing the same move again, do it better. If you're just doing the basics in the warm-up, make sure you've got all the technique right. Make sure, all these little things that make your dancing better, focus on those. Because the thing is, muscle memory doesn't happen like that. It doesn't happen in a month. You might be able to get the steps and the footwork, but the way the hip moves, the way the feet are, the arms, the head positioning, the body positioning, all of those things takes a long time to develop. So if you are just doing basics, and I say just doing basics, that is your opportunity then, especially if you've learned the basics and you understand the pattern, that is then your opportunity to take that pattern to the next level and actually improve on your technique. So my advice is stay a beginner as long as possible, and every time you come to the class, you come with the intention to improve. Just like that mindset thing we spoke about earlier, you're coming in with an open mind and with lots of questions. Number 5 is to really make your dance style, or whatever it is that you're learning, the center of your world. This doesn't mean everything has to revolve around the dance, but it means that we don't just go to a class, learn one step and go home, or let's say learn 5 steps, go home, remember 1 and don't look at it again until next week. It means that in between classes, I'm actually listening to the music and I'm trying to connect to the music and understand the structure of the music and different types of music and how music works. Like with dance, music has a pattern. So if you can figure out the pattern in music, then you can match that up to the patterns in dance. Then you're getting more coherent with your dancing and you're understanding rhythm better. So things like listening to music in your spare time, watching videos. So I'll come on to social media in a little bit, but watching videos of dancers, taking videos after class of the choreography, and you don't even need to do the choreography in your own time. Even if you just watch the choreography and do it in your head, that counts as learning. Like, that is still learning, that is still recapping what you've done. So don't just go one class at a time and expect that you're going to be an amazing dancer. You want to try and simulate slowly different types of dance elements into your life. For example, if I'm going for a shower, I'll put on some bachata music in the shower whilst I'm getting ready. I'm listening to that music. You know, if I'm in the car, I'll listen to different types of bachata music or salsa music and get those rhythms into my body. If I am getting ready in the morning, I might put some music on and move my hips a little bit, practice the technique. So these little moments, these little snippets of my day, they add up to multiple hours of practice. So make dancing a part of your life, not just the one class that you go to once a week and that's it. Of course, if that's all you want to do and that's the only relationship you want to have with the dance, just that 1 hour of switch off, that's also fine. But you are watching this video because you want to get better, you want to start learning and start becoming a better dancer. So take the time to see how you can assimilate dance styles into your life. And then we spoke about social media, so we're going to move on to social media. Now, use social media wisely. The thing is, there is such a thing as too much. So at the moment, my feed is just full of bachata dancers over and over and over again. And it gets to a point, there's always that graph, right? You have the growth and then you have the plateau until something changes, then you can have growth again. So at the moment, like if you're constantly looking at different videos, you can pick up lots of new moves. You can pick up how different artists will use their bodies to match the music, different musicality elements. You can hear different types of music, see different styles of bachata. You can see how two different people can interpret the same dance style and the same music in two completely different ways. So it is really good as a learning tool, but it does get to a point where you can burn out from it. So I always suggest take some time off. Like with everything, you need a break. Take some time off, use social media wisely. And also if it gets to a point where you're starting to compare yourself to other people, then we need to go back to that mindset shift and come back to our mindset and think, no, I am a student, I am growing, I am learning. I'm not going to try and rush to the intermediate class or to the advanced class. I'm going to try and take what I can take and do a really good job. And I'm not interested in anyone else's journey because dance is a personal journey. And that is what I'm going to try and assimilate into my mindset. So use social media to get inspiration, to see great dancers, to see musicality, be introduced to new moves, to new music, but be careful that we're not going too far with that. And we come on to my final point, which is to get feedback. This kind of again links back to the mindset where we talked about receiving criticism, but we're going to take this a little bit further because feedback is the number one thing which is going to improve your dancing. It's not going to work if you don't have a growth mindset. It's not going to work if you can't accept or seek out criticism. So you need to get that right first, and then we go on to feedback. There's 4 different ways that you can get feedback. I'm sure there's more, but there's 4 ways that I always recommend. Number 1 is feedback in class. So asking the teacher questions like we mentioned, asking your peers questions, like if you're doing a dance style where you lead and follow, you can ask your follower, look, did I lead this bit correctly? Or as a follower, you can be like, oh, okay, could you do that again so I can have another go with that follow? What you need to do is make sure you ask the questions, especially the teachers in the class. The second thing I'll say is mirrors. So your class might not have mirrors, so then it's down to you to either see if you can hire out a studio, see if there's any classes that have mirrors, or you can just in your own home, in front of a mirror, particularly like a long mirror preferably, have a go and just practice the techniques, practice the moves, and look at yourself, give yourself feedback. You're not there to be like, oh yeah, I look great, I look amazing. You're also not there to be like, wow, I look like crap, I'm bad, I'm not very good. There is a fine line between being like, okay, I'm doing what I'm doing well, I'm doing X, Y, and Z well, this is where I need to improve. Again, we can always get better. So even the professionals looking at themselves and thinking, how can I get better? How can I make this move or this specific technique better? How can I implement this? So you need to have that mindset when you come in and you're looking at yourself in the mirror. And then equally the same as mirror, but perhaps one better is a video. So get someone to take videos of you dancing and watch those videos back in a way that is full of grace towards yourself and kindness towards yourself, but can still understand where you need to improve. And finally is private classes. Now in a group class, in a group setting, the teachers maybe giving you 2% because their attention is scattered towards every student, and it's their responsibility to make sure that every single student in that room gets equal attention, gets the help that they need. Now, if you have a private class, that teacher is 100% exactly on you. This means that they can be super picky and really correct the minor details to make you into a better dancer. Of course, this highly depends on the teacher that you pick. You don't want a teacher that's just going to teach you move after move after move. You want a teacher that's going to be able to look at what you're doing and maybe not cover as many moves, but make sure that you're doing them well and that your quality of movement is on point. Those are the 4 best ways, in my opinion, that you can get feedback when you're dancing to help you improve. So we've got a range of things we discussed today. Hopefully this has given you a good, positive insight into, I'm hoping that this video has delivered what I intended, which was a video that can give you the motivation to get started, put you in the right mindset when you start those classes, and to help you grow at a faster pace by slowing down. If you like this video, please like this video. And before you go anywhere, there is 2 videos here that I think would be highly useful. They are a little bit older, so perhaps the production quality is not as good, but the content is still very relevant. We've got one here on confidence, which again kind of hits into some of the stuff we talked about today. And we've got another one here, which is on how to start learning how to dance for beginners.